There was a trend a little while ago on TikTok of students going around their schools calling their teachers by their first names.
Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning. Oh, yeah.
Hello, Steph. Hi, Gloria.
That's Mrs. Decker.
Hey, John.
Hi, Pierre.
Hi.
Hi, Samantha.
How are you doing this?
Hi, Jacob.
Rachel, you are not done with any of my...
Hey, says Vora.
Miss?
Hey, Kurt.
And I think you can tell a lot about the teachers based in how they responded to the students. And the videos are funny because it is so out of the ordinary for students to call their teachers by their first names. But there is a case for why you should be on a first name basis with your students. Howdy folks, my name is Thom Gibson and this channel is all about helping middle school teachers design an engaging classroom experience for their students and a fulfilling teaching experience for themselves. During my first 3 years of teaching, I was a 5th grade teacher at a really big elementary school in Killeen, Texas, Iduma Elementary. And the students called me Mr. Gibson. I was actually gifted that little Mr. Gibson sign back there when I was at Iduma Elementary. It's kind of funny because there was a lady at the school that was making it for all the teachers and she didn't really know me too well, but assumed like, I guess since I'm a guy that I'd be like super into ESPN. And I don't watch sports at all, but I thought it was funny. Everything else she got pretty much right. Like I do play guitar and I'm super into technology. But I love this sign that she made. And ironically, I keep it in the back of my videos now, even though my students don't refer to me as Mr. Gibson, they refer to me as Thom. Using last names is a sign of respect for authority. Somewhere during those first 3 years, I remember reading a book by a teacher named Rafe Esquith, and anytime that he had quoted something that his students were saying, he always quoted them as referring to him as Rafe. And the first time I saw it, I went to the front of the book. I was like, wait, is Rafe his first name or his last name? And it was his first name. And he never actually mentioned in the book why he decided to go on a first name basis with his students. But based on what I gathered about his classroom culture, I figured it had something to do with building better relationships with the kids by being on a first name basis with them. But during my time at Iduma Elementary, I continued to go by Mr. Gibson because it would have just been super awkward to like mid-year to be like, hey, you guys can call me Thom now. I moved to a new school in 2014 in my 4th year of teaching. And when I got to that school, which is my current school called Headwaters, I discovered that all of the teachers were on a first name basis. This was a decision made by the school that was the type of culture that we were going to have. And so on my first day of teaching at my new school, I introduced myself to students as Thom Gibson.
Hi, I'm Thom.
And given the culture of the school, I didn't even have to tell the students, you guys can call me Thom. They just called me Thom. I would say it was weird for about 2 days. And then after that, it was normal.
Thom, we figured it out.
And I think the big thing that people come back to is like, oh, it's not respectful for a child to call their teacher by their first name, or really for anyone to refer to someone in authority by their first name. It's just a sign of respect to say Mr. or Doctor or whatever the title is. But I have found that students can still say and behave in extraordinarily disrespectful ways, even when they are calling me Mr. Gibson. And so I'm not fully convinced that respect comes from just the way that you are referred to by your title. That is what Mr. and Mrs. is called, right? It's the title. I think it is. I researched it. I'm like, title isn't just doctor or judge or honorary or something like that. I think Mr. and Mrs. is still title. As I started to get used to the kids calling me Thom, I did not feel this sense of disrespect at all. Respect is so much more than what people refer to you by. Respect is found in how people behave with you and towards you. This doesn't mean that I, the teacher, and the students in the class are equal in every way. The students know that I am not their peer. The students know that I am still the authority in the classroom. But me going by my first name is one small way that I am not flaunting or exerting my authority over the students. The best leaders are the ones that are not so worried about everyone around them knowing that they are the leader.
I'd like your respect. I am your boss now.
And leaders earn respect through the things that they say and do, not through the titles that they go by. And also, we want to model being lifelong learners. I think that traditional model is like the teacher knowing everything. It's like, I want my students to see me not only as someone who's creating that learning experience for them, but someone who is still learning themselves. Having students call you by your first name levels the playing field out just a little bit. It gets rid of some of the unnecessary barriers of me being the adult who's leading this classroom and you being the student who's really being in the learning experience experience of this classroom. And it's a small thing that helps the kids see you as a whole person and not just a teacher who probably lives in the school, which in turn does help build more positive relationships with the students. And if a student still wants to call you by your title of Mr. or Mrs., that's fine. I've had a couple sixth graders throughout the years call me Mr. Thom instead of just Thom, and that was fine. Or if a student was coming from a household where that's the first name with adults was just not a thing, and they still wanted to refer to me as Mr. Gibson, that is fine. I'm just creating that option and that opportunity for students to be able to call me Thom if they're comfortable with that. So it is much easier to be on a first name basis with your students when it is the culture of your entire school. I do recognize the challenges of maybe wanting to do this at your school, but being the only teacher that's doing it, or being a few of the teachers in an entire school that's doing it. So if you do want to begin to go on a first name basis with your students to begin to build that type of classroom community, I would say definitely have your reasons on why you're doing it ready, because students are going to ask, your colleagues are going to ask, admin's going to ask, and parents are going to ask. Let people know when they do ask that it's just a way that you're trying to build a positive classroom culture, and be very careful about how you talk about it, because you don't want to sound like you're throwing other teachers under the bus who go by Mr. or Mrs. The last thing you want is a kid saying, "Oh, so you think Mrs. Johnson doesn't have good classroom culture because she doesn't go by her first name?" No. I don't think that. Going by Thom or going by Mr. Gibson, neither is better or worse. You can build positive classroom culture whether you're going by your first name or whether the students are calling you Mr. or Mrs. I have found that going by my first name does help a little bit in building that positive classroom culture. Going by my first name is just one of the things that I do in my classroom to help build positive classroom culture. And if you check out this video right here, you can see 5 other things that I do with my students to help build a positive classroom culture. Thanks so much for watching, and hopefully I will see you over in that video.